Imagine you build $1 million app to optimize water usage for local farmers. I mean, it is flawless code. The UI is gorgeous. The database architecture is just a work of art.
Right. Totally perfect on paper.
Exactly. You deploy it, completely expecting to revolutionize the local agricultural economy overnight, and then nobody downloads it. Not a single person.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time in tech.
Why? Because you built this pristine technical solution without, actually understanding the human network you were deploying it into. You didn't realize those farmers have been sharing water based on a generational trust system, and an app just feels like an intrusion.
It is a harsh reality check. I mean, we get so accustomed to closed, predictable digital systems. You plug a cable into a port, data flows. You write a script, the server executes it.
Right, it behaves exactly how you tell it to.
Exactly. But when you try to apply that same rigid logic to a living, breathing neighborhood, things just fall apart. That human landscape is incredibly messy. It has history, culture, deeply ingrained habits, and honestly, justified skepticism.
Welcome to the deep dive. That exact tension, the collision of technical solutions and complex human reality, is what we are unpacking today.
Yeah, it's such a crucial topic.
Because whether you are an IT student gearing up for the realities of the Industrial Revolution 4.0, or you are just, an insanely curious learner who wants to understand how communities actually grow and change, you need this perspective.
Absolutely. Understanding how to apply technical skills to holistic, human-centered community growth is, well, it's the ultimate superpower.
It really is. So today's deep dive covers subject, IR4 Community Development, specifically looking at unit title, Unit 1, Introduction to Community Development, and diving deep into lesson title. Lesson 1, Foundations of Community Development, exploring concepts and fostering engagement.
It's a really comprehensive roadmap, and our mission today is to extract the practical mechanics from those foundational concepts. We want to figure out how we move past, temporary band-aids and empty hardware
Right.
and start driving change that is sustainable, respectful, and genuinely useful to the people actually living there.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can start designing solutions, we have to understand the tools at our disposal. There is a very hard line drawn in the material between two concepts that sound almost identical, but they operate on entirely different frequencies.
Yes, community development and community extension.
Exactly. And if you don't know which one you're doing, you are pretty much setting yourself up for failure.
It is probably the most common point of failure for well-meaning projects. People confuse the two constantly. So let's look at the mechanics. Community development is a systemic, holistic approach.
Okay, systemic.
Right. The objective is to elevate the overall well-being of a community by addressing deep-rooted issues across multiple dimensions. So we're talking social, cultural, economic, and environmental. You are aiming for long-term, self-sustaining progress where the community eventually drives its own growth.
So the development is really about structural change.
Precisely. Now, community extension is entirely different. It is highly targeted. It involves taking the specialized knowledge, expertise, or resources of an outside institution like, say, a university's IT department, and extending them outward into the community to solve a very specific practical need.
Oh, I see. So it is a temporary bridge, not a new foundation.
Yes,
If
exactly.
I think about this through a technical lens, community development is like upgrading the entire operating system of a neighborhood.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. You are changing the core infrastructure so everything runs better in the long term. But community extension is like installing a highly effective single purpose app to debug an immediate problem.
That is an excellent analogy. And the crucial takeaway here is that these two concepts aren't competing with each other. They are complementary.
Yeah.
But you have to know which one to deploy.
Make sure you use the right tool for the job.
Exactly. If a neighborhood's underlying infrastructure is fundamentally broken, let's say they have no access to clean water, giving them a specific app, like a weekend seminar on hygiene,
Uh-huh.
isn't going to fix the core issue.
Yeah, that's not going to do much.
You need an OS upgrade, you need community development.
But on the flip side, if there is an immediate crisis, like a sudden flood, you don't start a 5-year systemic development program to redesign the city's drainage.
No, of course not.
The extension right now, you need resources extended immediately to just pump the water out.
Exactly. It really comes down to timeline, objectives, and resources. Recognizing when a community needs a targeted extension versus a holistic development plan is the absolute first step in actually being helpful.
That makes total sense. And that brings us directly to how that broader operating system functions. Because if community development is about upgrading the whole system, we have to understand the components that make it run.
Right, the 4 dimensions.
Yeah, the system is built on 4 interconnected dimensions: social, cultural, economic, and environmental. And from what I read, if you ignore one, the whole system gets bottlenecked.
You truly cannot isolate them.
Yeah.
To build resilience in a community, you have to be operating in all 4 spaces. Let's take the social dimension first.
Okay.
This is all about human capital and relationships. It is the trust between neighbors, the strength of local networks, and, social cohesion.
And a great practical example of building that from the text is a neighborhood unity garden.
Yes, the unity garden.
Because you aren't just doing it to grow tomatoes, right? There is a psychological mechanism at play. When you get people from different demographics, maybe elderly residents and teenagers working side by side in the dirt, the shared physical labor bypasses a lot of that conversational awkwardness.
Oh, absolutely. It acts as an icebreaker.
Yeah, they are working toward a shared goal, which organically builds a baseline of trust.
And that baseline of trust creates the perfect environment for the cultural dimension to thrive. Well, the cultural piece is about preserving identity, traditions, and shared history.
Hmm.
It isn't just about throwing a cultural diversity festival for the sake of a party. It is a structured strategy.
Okay, I'm with you.
By intentionally organizing workshops for traditional cuisines or showcasing local art, you are validating the community's identity. You are saying your history matters here.
Which actually creates a massive ripple effect into the economic dimension. I was thinking about this earlier. A lot of times we view cultural preservation as just a nice feel-good social initiative.
Right, like it's just a bonus.
Yeah, but it is actually a financial moat for a neighborhood. When a community has a rich, celebrated cultural identity, it becomes a destination.
Mm.
It attracts local spending, it supports niche entrepreneurship, and it keeps money circulating within the neighborhood rather than just bleeding out to big box stores.
That is a phenomenal connection. The economic dimension is fundamentally about self-sufficiency and inclusive growth. It is ensuring people have access to the market. And sometimes, creating that access requires looking at barriers we might not immediately recognize as economic.
Like bilingual services.
Exactly. At first glance, providing a translator at a community center looks like a purely social service.
But if you think about it like an API in software, if a local entrepreneur can't interface with the government system because of a language barrier, they can't negotiate a business permit, they are completely locked out of the market.
Providing that language access bridges the gap. It reduces income disparity by allowing a marginalized group to participate in the local economy.
Wow, yeah.
And that leads us to the 4th dimension, which is often the most misunderstood, the environmental dimension.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I think people's definitions can be a little too narrow here. We hear environmental and we immediately think of saving trees or reducing plastic waste.
Right, the typical green initiatives.
Yeah, but the text shows this is actually about the physical infrastructure and resilience of the human network. It is about green infrastructure, permaculture, and how the physical space dictates mental and physical health.
Because a degraded environment guarantees a degraded economy. I mean, think about it. If a community's air quality is abysmal, respiratory illnesses spike.
Which means kids aren't in class.
Exactly. Children miss school, adults miss work, and healthcare costs just drain the local economy. Environmental stewardship isn't a separate noble pursuit. It is the literal bedrock that the social, cultural, and economic dimensions rest upon.
I want to push back on the implementation of all this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because mapping out these 4 dimensions makes logical sense. You build a green space, you celebrate diversity, everybody starts a local business. But human beings are famously resistant to change.
Oh, very much so.
Going back to my IT student from earlier, the one with the water optimization app, if that student understands the 4 dimensions, builds a tool to help the environmental and economic pillars, and the community still says, no thanks, we've always farmed this way, how do you overcome that?
Well, that resistance is actually the most valuable data point you can get.
Wait, really? The resistance itself?
Yes. If the community is rejecting the solution, it usually means the social trust hasn't been established or a cultural norm was ignored during the design process. You cannot force a technological or economic change without the community's buy-in.
So the technology is never the starting point.
Never. The technology is simply an amplifier for human intent. If you haven't taken the time to listen and understand why those farmers share water the way they do, your app is just an intrusion.
That makes a lot of sense.
And this is why we have to transition from the theory of these dimensions to the actual mechanics of engagement.
Yeah.
How do we collaborate effectively?
Well, that execution phase relies entirely on structured collaboration. And for someone with technical skills, the potential here is massive.
Huge potential.
You don't have to be a policy expert to make an impact. You can leverage what you know through interdisciplinary or public-private collaboration.
Exactly.
Imagine tech experts partnering with a local community center to run coding boot camps, or a university IT department teaming up with local government to build a localized resource app.
Yeah.
You are pooling specialized technical knowledge with the lived everyday experience of the residents.
And to make sure that collaboration doesn't just become chaotic, it helps to categorize your efforts. We can organize community extension into 3 distinct types: discipline, event, and relief.
Okay, discipline, event, release. Let's run these through a tech-focused lens. The discipline type is all about long-term sustainable change, right? It's educational.
Yes, that's right.
So this would be the coding bootcamp example. You are dedicating months or years to teaching vocational IT skills to unemployed youth, fundamentally changing their economic trajectory.
Yes, it requires sustained commitment. Then you have the event type. This is targeted and short-term. It responds to a specific, immediate objective.
Okay, so an event extension might be organizing a 48-hour hackathon over a weekend to build a centralized inventory database for all the local food banks. You bring the resources in, you solve the specific problem, and the event concludes.
Spot on. And the third type is relief. This is distinct from an event because relief is specifically about immediate support for communities in severe distress.
Like a disaster.
Exactly. You aren't building long-term capacity here, you are stabilizing a crisis.
So in a tech context, if a hurricane wipes out the power grid, a relief extension would be an IT team deploying mobile satellite internet stations and solar charging hubs so people can contact their families and access emergency funds.
Yes. You are just trying to stop the bleeding.
Right.
A mature approach to community engagement knows how to utilize all 3.
Right.
But there's a secondary mechanism happening during all of these extensions that is just as important as the service being provided.
What's
the impact the engagement has on the practitioner, on the volunteer themselves?
Oh, wow. This is a really profound shift in focus because it is so easy to view community work as a one-way street, right? The expert bestows their knowledge upon the community.
Exactly, the savior complex.
Yeah. But actually engaging with these messy real-world problems fosters something deeply important in the practitioner, especially for those in highly logical screen-bound fields like IT. It builds empathy and ethical responsibility.
It acts as a catalyst for personal growth. When you mentor a young student or set up a tech clinic for the elderly, you are confronted with the friction of real life. You see how technology interacts with varying levels of literacy, physical ability, and income.
And that empathy directly changes how you code. It isn't just about being a nicer person.
No, it's practical.
If you've spent time helping an elderly resident navigate a poorly designed healthcare portal on a 5-year-old smartphone, the next time you design an interface, you are going to prioritize accessibility.
Yes, you are.
You are going to optimize for low bandwidth. Your ethical responsibility fundamentally alters your technical priorities.
That grounded empathy is what separates a competent engineer from a truly great one. But building that empathy requires specific, intentional strategies. You can't just walk into a neighborhood and expect to understand it.
So how do you do it?
You have to use frameworks like participatory decision-making, where the community actually dictates how resources are allocated rather than you telling them what they need.
Which brings us to arguably the most powerful strategy for engagement mentioned in the text, and one that I think completely rewires how a technically minded person looks at a problem. It is called asset mapping and appreciative inquiry.
Oh, I love this concept.
And I know that sounds like a massive corporate buzzword, but the mechanics of it are incredible.
It is a profound paradigm shift. Traditionally, when an outside group comes in to, quote-unquote, help a community, they perform a deficit analysis.
Deficit analysis, so looking for what's wrong.
Exactly. They scan the environment to catalog everything that is broken, missing, or impoverished.
Yeah.
Asset mapping flips that entirely. It demands that before you look for the problems, you inventory the existing strengths.
It is like looking for the undocumented features of a system instead of just logging the bugs.
That's a great way to think of it.
Instead of walking into a neighborhood and saying, you know, there are no major grocery stores here, this is a food desert, asset mapping forces you to look closer.
Right.
You might realize, wait, there is an incredibly robust, informal network of urban gardeners here and a tradition of neighbors sharing meals.
Exactly. You identify the hidden assets, the cultural hubs, the resilient individuals, the local skills. By doing this, you validate the community's inherent worth before you ever introduce a new initiative.
You build on what is already working.
Yes, amplifying their strengths, rather than just paternalistically trying to fix their weaknesses.
So, if we zoom all the way out and look at this massive landscape of community dynamics, what does this all mean for you listening right now? I think it synthesizes down to three core takeaways. First, you have to master the difference between systemic community development, the OS upgrade, and targeted community extension, the specific app.
Because deploying the wrong one wastes time, resources, and trust.
Exactly. Second, you must respect the deep interconnection of the four dimensions. Social trust, cultural preservation, economic access, and environmental resilience are inextricably linked.
Right. If your technical solution ignores the cultural or social reality of the neighborhood, the human network will reject it.
And third, execution matters. You drive change through collaboration, whether that is a long-term discipline, a weekend event, or emergency relief.
But your technical skills have to be guided by empathy. Getting out from behind the screen and engaging with real people changes how you design, what you prioritize, and ultimately how effective your solutions will be.
Yeah, your technical capabilities are really only as powerful as your understanding of the human element they serve.
Which is why I'd like to leave you with a challenge.
Oh, let's hear it.
Next time you walk through your own neighborhood, try conducting an informal asset map.
I love this.
Fight the urge to look for the potholes, the broken streetlights, or the empty storefronts. Look for the hidden strengths.
The features, not the bugs.
Exactly. Identify the informal networks of support, the unique cultural anchors, the people who are quietly holding the social fabric together. And ask yourself, how could my specific skills, maybe even my background in IT, help amplify the features that are already running beautifully in this place?
Stop obsessing over the bugs and start empowering the features. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the blueprints, keep looking for those hidden assets in your own community, and we will catch you next time.